I never suspected that even among my precious tomatoes, a trespasser ran amok. It was a shrew. This ravenous pipsqueak needs to eat his weight in food every day. For his size, he's one of the fiercest predators in the world. But a year ago, I didn't even know he existed. My mind was in the mulch. I was too busy savoring the fruits of my labor. Now, all the while, this little fellow, he weighed no more than a wet tea bag, had the run of the place. Like it or not, shrews are among the garden's most common mammals. They love to dig around for worms and beetles, spiders, snails. They work day and night, hunting 1 hour, then napping the next. It's a schedule I could settle into. Shrews operate at such a furious pace that just missing a meal could kill them. When they're on the go, they really live life in the fast lane. Under stress, their hearts beat up to 1,300 times a minute. Like mine during my last audit. It's safe to say that no perfume maker has ever been inspired by a shrew. Glands on their bellies put out a musky smell. Only a predator with a strong stomach will take one on. The garter snake is tough enough for the job. He's one of the backyard's great hunters, at home in the water as well as on land. He tastes the air with his tongue and picks up a whiff of shrew. Following the trail, the snake closes in. His weapon, a steel trap jaw. A fight is coming. But my little shrew is no babe in the woods. Predicting a winner might be hard. The snake has no venom, but his quarry does. The short-tailed shrew is the only North American mammal with a poisonous bite, except for my Aunt Mildred. In this fight, first bite wins. The shrew strikes for the neck. His cobra-like venom starts to subdue the snake. Muscles go slack. Breathing slows. Paralysis would soon set in, if the shrew weren't so hungry. The snake has been vanquished by the one creature in my yard there is no taming of. What a place my garden was. I'd reached for the suburbs and ended up in the Serengeti. Something awful seemed to stir in every crevice. This beetle is emerging after 3 years underground. She is an acorn weevil, a subversive devil about the size of a grain of rice. I felt like her goal in life was to wreck my oak trees. As soon as she dries off her wings for her maiden flight, off she'll go, gunning for my acorns. But I didn't know any of this back then. I had other fish to fry, like keeping my daisies from drooping. Of course, now I know. I didn't even have control of my own flower patch. Just below me, an earwig was laying her eggs. This forbidding insect seems to have had... Earwigs like to hang out in warm, dark spaces, but that bit about hiding in people's ears, Just a tired old myth. I hope. A terrible threat approaches. The footage you are about to see contains scenes that may be disturbing to some viewers. Now, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the garden. Speaking of the heat, I'd like you to meet a fire ant. These South American invaders work in huge colonies. They run an efficient operation. 250,000 ants. That's one extended family. Can get by on 2 meals a day. Here's the appetizer. And now, for the main course. An ant attacks. The dragonfly shakes a leg. Reinforcements are quick to arrive. The dragonfly makes a desperate move. It's too late. Again and again, the dragonfly is stung with a caustic venom. It's death by 1,000 fiery jabs. And I thought paparazzi were bad. Piece by piece, the ants dismantle their captive, like a scene out of Gulliver's Travels. Make that Reservoir Dogs. For the ants, it's tails I win, heads you lose. Decapitation is the final insult. Some say the world will end in fire ants. For the dragonfly, it just did. I thought the garden was mine, but in fact creatures had claimed it all. My yard was divided into warring camps. Each shrew controls its own patch, and being some of nature's crankiest creatures, shrews do not like to share. My little shrew's neighbor is sleeping, just over the scent-marked border that defines their territories. But while these little fellows have a great sense of smell, they have poor vision and can sometimes bump right into each other. It's usually a nasty surprise for both. The winner of this battle may gain the other's territory. The loser may end up as lunch. They move faster than Aunt Mildred dealing blackjack. It's extreme wrestling on a tiny scale. Time out while they play to the grandstand. Now back to the action. No one knows if shrews are immune to their own venom. But if they're not, they really shouldn't be doing this. A battle can last over half an hour. But my little shrew settles this one quickly with a well-placed net. No turf will change hands today, and both scurry back to their homes. I used to do battle in the garden myself. I felt it was my territory, and I had to defend it. Sure, I had big weapons, but I was starting to worry about the little things. Something was bothering me. I couldn't put my finger on it. Lucky for me. Black widows were living in my shed. The male is outweighed 30-fold by a no-nonsense female. He approaches, tapping carefully to woo her and to avoid her lethal bite. If we could understand his vibes of love, it would go like, please, baby, please, don't kill me. Now, so far, so good. Love. For this glorious moment, he is ready to give an arm and a leg. Now the female lays her eggs. She secures over 200 of them in a silky sack. Not one to put all her eggs in one basket. She'll eventually spin about 5. In only 2 weeks, 1,000 new spiderlings will invade my yard. Black widows may have colonized my shed, but I was more worried about what was going on outside. I was prepared to fight the good fight with chemical warfare. As I was saying, I had no idea the enemy was living in my armory. It was bad enough outside. My stems were being sucked, my leaves lacerated, my petals perforated. It was more than a man could bear. Who could blame me if I practiced tough love? It smells like victory. But I was no winner. My insecticide, long expired, had all the kick of a Shirley Temple. And just as well, because the mantis loves to munch on the munchers I was trying to murder. The way things were going, I didn't have a prayer of taming the savage garden. I used to call them as I saw them. When I saw them, if I knew what they were called. Trouble is, some of these pesky little critters were neither fish nor fowl. Like the daddy longlegs in my shed. They're familiar and strange at the same time. But what are they? Think it's a spider? No. Insect? No. They're called epilions, from the Latin meaning aphid sucker. Yeah. Aphids are perfect suckers, really, when it comes to my rose stems. And a lot more than one is born every minute, at least in my backyard. In fact, aphids can reproduce without having sex. There's one of nature's lousier ideas. Daddy Longlegs has arrived for the hunt. Make that Mommy Longlegs. She has legs up to here. Each is slender as a thread and works partly by hydraulics. She even hears, tastes, and smells using her legs. Reminds me of, well, never mind. I now know there's a lot to admire in this creature. She has pretty good manners. She chews her food before eating it. Granted, outside her mouth. She sucks up the juices through a flexible tube. She also flosses after every meal. I prefer unwaxed mint myself. Why are Daddy Longlegs' legs long? To keep their plump bodies high above predators. If that's not enough, 2 legs put out a nasty smell to discourage hunters. But trust me, if you can smell them, you're too close. The smelly legs also have built-in seismographs, and she's keeping her legs peeled for approaching enemies, like the tiger beetle, a killing machine, an orthodontist's nightmare. The beetle attacks and grabs a leg. It's a tug of war. And then, built for quick release, the leg pops off. Special muscles close off the stump. The tiger beetle, no genius, hangs on to its prize. The daddy longlegs hobbles off, but at least she's still alive and kicking. In the middle of all the mayhem, beauty still flourished in my garden. I never could train my vines. Where flowers grow, bees abound. In a naughty little quid pro quo, bees handle the flower's sex life in exchange for a drizzle of nectar. The life of a worker bee is measured in distance, not days. It's like a frequent flyer program in reverse. Fly 500 miles, and then you die. Now, I'd been in a bee movie or two, so I used to think I had a way with these critters, but then came the fateful moment when I realized that all of the garden was not under my spell. One day a bee came up to me and stopped to pay her respects. But this cheeky bug was testing the boundaries. It was a small infraction, but it threw me. If she could question authority, what else was going on in my little Eden? Well, plenty. I'd only seen the tip of the iceberg. Lettuce. No creature was safe, not even the little upstart of a bee. She was being watched by many eyes. 8, to be exact. They all belonged to a jumping spider. It never hurts to have eyes on the back of your head, even if they're only good for seeing movement. To see what is moving, the spider must turn to face her prey. She's caught sight of the bee. 2 large front eyes track the prey. She can't move her eyes as we do, but she can swing her retinas back and forth inside her head. It's like holding your eyes still and then trying to look around by moving your brain. Don't try this at home. There, you see? You can see the eyes lighten and darken as the spider looks around. Being among the smartest of spiders, she doesn't head straight for her prey. Instead, she approaches deviously. She's an accomplished stalker. Like a slasher film victim, the bee is unaware of danger. Good luck for the spider. The bee flies even closer. The spider creeps up. The spider is now within range. Meanwhile, the bee laps up nectar with her remarkable tongue. It's long and hairy, like mine the morning after a guacamole festival. The spider must judge the bee's exact distance. Just one false move and the spider will suffer a sting, lose her meal, and perhaps her life. The spider definitely got the jump on the bee. Poor bee. She had a good 80 miles left on her.
Earthworms, as big as fire hoses. Bald eagles, snatching up babes from strollers. Woolly mammoths, taking down a 7-Eleven. Well, you will not be seeing anything like that in this film. But you will be seeing the hard, cold truth about the garden. To me, my garden was filled with sneaky, willful creatures who seemed to enjoy getting my dandruff up. And worst of all, they didn't respect me. So I didn't respect them until I learned to pay attention. Close attention. Now, that's harder to do than you think. Now, some people can have their eyes wide open and see nothing. Other people can have their eyes closed and watch reruns of Bonanza. Well, that's not a problem I want to discuss right now. Or you can have this eye closed, this eye open, or you can have this eye closed and this eye open. And either way it gets you nowhere. As I was saying, respect your garden. Watch it closely. I wish I had learned these lessons sooner myself.
At the time, some lessons were too elevated for me to learn. Even above my garden, trouble was brewing. The acorn weevil was back, and sure enough, she'd found my oak tree. She's looking for a good meal, and when it comes to acorns, she knows the drill. What a schnoz. It's longer than her body and tipped with tiny jaws. Reminds me of my first agent. After a 3-year fast, she's eating my acorns. Kind of like my second agent. There goes the next generation. Of oak trees, I mean. Her little jaws are smaller than a printed period. Helvetica 12-point. Through her straw-like proboscis, she sucks up liquid fat from the acorn. It's a perfect diet for a weevil. But don't even think about it if you're on Jenny Craig. Next, she'll lay her egg inside, but only if this is the kind of oak tree that suits her. Finicky, this little pest. Sometimes even the darker side had a gentleness about it. Unless you're a slug. Dusk was the time for creatures large and small to rest and enjoy the harmony of our domain. Especially the lucky few that had escaped my iron fist policy. This evening my garden was about to disappoint me, as it never had before. It was a hungry bat, and she was about to shatter my peace of mind. The mantis takes flight at just the wrong time. The bat hunts with a kind of sonar. From her nose, she beams a high-pitched sound. Listening to the echoes tells her the position, speed, and direction of the mantis. Some sanctuary. It was Top Gun in my own backyard. Where's Tom Cruise when you really need him? Thank you. The mantis has a single ear right in the middle of his belly, much like Aunt Mildred. It's tuned exactly to the bat channel. The mantis hears the bat, throws his legs forward, power dive. Narrow escape, but not for long. The bat is gaining. She sounds louder than ever. Desperate, the mantis flies straight into the ground. I cheered for the underdog. The mantis escaped again. All right. But there's no Deus in this machina, buddy. Death and destruction everywhere. I'd set out to build a paradise, and here I had a ringside seat at Armageddon. I thought this was my darkest hour, but that was yet to come. At night. After the sun went down, some of my backyard's most unsavory creatures appeared. To find them, all you have to do is follow your nose to the herb patch. There are 8 million shrews in the naked garden. This has been one of them. It was my little shrew. No need to suspect foul play. Shrews run like mad for a couple of years. I just keel over. But the dearly departed seem to be coming back to life. Nope, still dead. The burying beetles have come. For them, the late shrew is a windfall. It will be food. And more. But hungry competitors are all about, like other beetles, maggots, and raccoons. It isn't first come, first serve in the savage garden. So to secure their prize, the beetles conduct a kind of funeral. Lying on their backs, they walk the shrew forward. I hope this doesn't catch on in my aerobics class. beetles drag the shrew several feet to an abandoned burrow. And just in time, because the maggots are frisky tonight. They're turning a dead mouse into an area rug. The burying beetles are settling into their underground home, and it's not from the pages of House and Garden. It's more like Mortician's Monthly. The beetles now have a major home improvement project. Call it This Old Shrew. The carcass will be converted into a nursery. An edible nursery. As at better funeral homes, the body is shaved. Next, to seal in freshness, the beetles embalm the shrew with secretions. My shrew, may he rest in peace, is finally prepared. The female will soon lay her eggs near his remains. Just above, raccoons patrol the garden. After a few pull-ups and a cool drink of water, they search for food. The grass is definitely greener on the other side. An earthworm tries to escape from the raccoon by burrowing. Poor choice. But as Charles Darwin wrote of the worm's mental abilities, there is little to be said. A mole, cousin of the shrew, eats the earthworm by squeezing it out like a tube of toothpaste. I think I'll stick to baking soda. The mole barrels through her tunnels with catcher's mitt paws. But when she comes up to an obstacle, she won't be stopped. Now she's poking my parsnips. I hate when that happens. I'd had enough trouble in the herb garden. My whole idea of the backyard was decomposing, much like my poor little shrew. I wanted to forget about the gruesome burial. But just 1 week later, I paid an accidental visit to the grave. What a change had taken place. Babies. The morgue had become a daycare center. Burying beetles have hatched and scrambled on top of the shrew. And here the young beetles live like so many chicks in a nest. Mom's on her way. First, she'll eat what's left of the shrew. Looks like Aunt Mildred's shepherd's pie. Next, she calls to get her baby's attention. And now she regurgitates to feed her young. She offers one a succulent shrew Slurpee. And I thought I had a rough childhood. Burying beetles make some of the best parents of any insect. That's not saying much. The mother will happily eat some of her young if the dead shrew is too small to support the brood. Home sweet home. As the shrew dwindles, the grubs grow fat. In a way, burying beetles practice reincarnation. Con carne. High up in my oak tree, an acorn has gone bad. The tree senses the damage and can cut its losses. By now, I was expecting something weird and wonderful. Okay, just plain weird. Inside, the old acorn weevil's baby has grown up and eaten itself out of house and home. Good riddance. The grub can feel the impact with the ground. That's the signal to move on. But it's no easy matter to get out of an acorn. The young weevil more or less has to perform its own C-section. It's already cutting an escape hatch, but it can take 3 days to get out. How do you get out of a hole the size of your head? It sure helps to be a living accordion. Portrait of the Michelin Man as a young grub. The young weevil must now hide itself, but a hungry shrew is nearby. The grub will start to dig underground where it will metamorphose and wait perhaps years before emerging to continue its seemingly pointless cycle of life. On the other hand, look how we're spending our time. The shrew is intent on finding grub. I mean, a grub. My garden wasn't the scene of an apocalypse after all. It was more like Genesis. A female shrew's been nesting. Ah, baby shrews. Some of the smallest and most helpless of newborn mammals. It would take nearly 5,000 of them to weigh a pound. But they'll sure grow fast. They'll leave the nest in 3 weeks. A couple of weeks later, they'll be looking for mates themselves. It's a beautiful thing. Don't worry, I'm not going new age on you. But I couldn't help feeling that one of them was smiling at me. You know, I have a way with the garden's creatures.
So here is my advice about the garden. Give up the slightest idea that you can control it. Leave yourself open to delight. Keep your eyes open and enjoy the wonderful flavors that you'll have it.
Yay!
Well, and of course, you must share your garden.
What? Stay away from those trees. Hey!